Today, it is not unusual for 1/3 of a nation's population to be less than 15 years old. Often 2/3 of a nation is under 30. Many nations simply do not have strong enough economies to provide jobs for their exploding, hungry, struggling populations. Algerian economists estimate that 1/3 of the nation's young men will live their entire lives without finding a job. Islamic activists rallied young Algerians against the government by exploiting their discontent. When the Islamic Party swept free elections, the government nullified the elections by force, repressing its own campaign for democratization. Algeria's crisis is far from over. It will not be the only crisis of its kind. Ironically, many of the problems governments now face stem from the benefits of modern life. Today, people around the world are healthier, better educated, and better informed about world events than ever before. They are much more likely to demand more of their governments and to question the performance of those governments, whether communist, capitalist, or nationalist. In the past, governments could reinforce their power by turning to the United States or the Soviet Union for support in exchange for joining one side of the Cold War. But this is no longer possible. For all of these reasons, the 1990s will be a decade of turmoil, violence, and instability. Nor will the world be able to dismiss internal wars as one nation's problem. The tragic Lebanese civil war has already shown that internal wars overflow their boundaries. Before that war ended in 1990, Israel, Iran, Syria, the United States, and several European countries had become involved. The internal wars of Cambodia and Yugoslavia have created massive refugee problems affecting other nations. In a world increasingly internationalized by communications, trade, and travel, the displacement of peoples, economic chaos, and spread of disease resulting from internal wars will have an impact around the globe. A higher risk of internal wars does not mean an end to international conflict. The end of the Cold War's balance of terror, the certainty that both sides of a nuclear war would be destroyed, has made it possible for nations to fight without risking global nuclear war. The Gulf War of 1991 could never have been fought in the Cold War era when the United States and the Soviets confronted each other around the world. Competition for resources has started hundreds of wars for thousands of years and may start future wars as well. For example, as water becomes scarcer around the world, nations may seize water or prevent their neighbors from taking it. As concerns about the environment grow, nations may use force to stop other nations from fouling the air, poisoning the sea, or consuming too much water. In the past, famines have been natural disasters, but today they are more and more the result of human conflicts. In Africa, we have already seen what happens when hundreds of thousands of people flee across borders searching for sanctuary and food. Nations may fight to keep refugees out and preserve their own scarce resources. The worldwide spread of modern military technology, weapons of pinpoint accuracy which can be armed with biological, chemical, or nuclear payloads, make it more and more likely that threatened nations will not wait to be attacked, but will strike first against their enemies. These preemptive strikes could easily lead to wars with casualties in the hundreds of thousands. In the future, UN peacekeepers will face a variety of challenges. Some of their missions will place them in their traditional role of symbolic buffer force between belligerent nations. But other conflicts, like internal wars, will not have well-defined borders or a clear political situation. More and more peacekeeping missions will also be joint military-civilian operations, which may include election and police monitoring, disaster relief, and human rights supervision. Future peacekeeping, like future warfare, promises to be more complex than ever before. In a rapidly evolving world, the United Nations will be continually challenged to develop new definitions of peacekeeping.